All right, so this is Eclipse SE. I'm in the admin portion, case management tab. The first drop down or first item under user group management is user management. So you create your users just using this little sun or starburst. Give them a full name, a user ID, password, mark them as inactive if you're closing them out or not having them active. You just want them in there. As far as privileges go, you select this little pencil here, and you can select which privileges that particular user has. So if you want them to be able to do anything and everything in this database, that's what a super admin is. Comes with a little cape. But they can do everything. They can create new users, they can create new cases, they got everything.
Mm-hmm.
The step below is case admin. They can do everything except create a new case. So they need to be assigned to a case, and then they can do everything. They can import transcripts, they can merge and split documents, they can do everything administrator except create a new case. Power user is one step below case admin. They can't really do any case administrator privileges. They have a lot of privileges, not every privilege. So if you notice, they can't import transcripts, but they can view them and edit them. They can't add to pick lists, and they can't update log tags. So if a tag has been locked, can't use it, they can't change it to where they can. The last one is standard user. Now, nothing is checked, but it does allow you to kind of customize a user role. So you just kind of select what you want that user to be. So if
Okay.
you want something like power user, but you don't want them to be able to delete a record, I would just deselect it and it'll automatically pop you to standard user, but keep all of those power users checked.
I ran into this when I was helping with a customer. I didn't see anything where they can delete cases. Does the super admin only have the access to delete cases?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Alrighty, so we'll save this person as a standard user. I don't think they need any. We can assign them to cases here as well. We can maybe assign them to this Globex case if we wanted to. Just select the case name and they're assigned to that. If it says not set, that means it will default to their standard user role, or you can give them specific privileges within this case. I'll just hit modify role and privileges, and then maybe we can make them a case admin in this case. So in the Globex case, Bill Smith is a case admin. Otherwise, he's that standard user and can't do anything in admin. So you can override those privileges. Group assignments. Is Bill part of a group? Do you have any groups where these particular groups, once they are assigned to cases, did they have specific privileges? Maybe more privileges, maybe less privileges.
Mm-hmm.
If they're assigned to a group, you can modify what group Bill is in. In group management, you can also modify kind of just like users, what privileges that group has, what are the people within that group able to do, what cases that group is assigned to, and what people or members or users belong in that group.
Okay.
So instead of giving your users individual permissions, you can assign them to a group and then give the group permissions. In the larger law firms, they tend to use groups a little bit more because it's a little bit easier to handle who's who and who's able to do what. They'll just put people into groups and then assign those groups to the cases, and they don't have to worry about figuring out each individual person's rights.
Mm-hmm.
Smaller, mid-sized law firms, the last law firm I was at, I used individual users. I didn't do a group management type thing. There were 6 paralegals and 5 attorneys who would actually be using the database. It just made sense to say, okay, all paralegals are going to be super admins. All of our paralegal assistants are going to be case managers, like case admins, and then the attorneys are going to be power users.
So on the user management, you can make as much users as you want, correct? So it's like, say if like, like I had a team of like 4 people, I can then make them 4 like just 4 users, but we it's the licensing that we need like for us to both be on it at the same time, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you had 4 licenses but 5 users, only 4 people could be on. That 5th person wouldn't be able to log in.
And is that for admin and desktop, or is
Yes.
it okay?
Yep. Yep. All around. All right. So that's user and group management. The next drop down or little section area is client and case management. We cannot create a case unless we have a client. We do have 2 clients already created. We have Banana Boat, and it has 1 case assigned to it. We also have Globex Industries, and that has 2 cases assigned to it. To create a new case, we go over to the right-hand side, and we hit this little sunburst with the people. Client ID, you can't really change this, so I always say, make sure you spell it correctly the first time. If not, just go with it. Live with it. All right. Pick one. I'll go with Don Francisco. We can put an address in here, so we can say drive. Let's say it's com, and there you go. We can give some information to him. We don't have to. The only thing that's mandatory is the client ID name. If we want to put an address, we want to put contact information, add some notes, we can. My last law firm, because we represented one particular client and they had over 120 facilities nationwide, and they had a lot of lawsuits coming out of each facility, I would have to maybe create 2 Saguaro clients. So I'd have Saguaro between 2018 and 2019, and then Saguaro 2020 and on kind of thing, just because we had so many cases. We had, for one facility, over 250 cases coming in a year.
Wow.
So I would just kind of like by year, it just made more sense. Other paralegals created it to where it went alphabetically. I think that kind of can get cumbersome if you have, like in my facility, one person would sue usually about 6 times a year. So, that section of the alphabet would grow pretty large.
Wow.
Yeah. It
Is
was
it,
a
I
it was
think
a
I see.
correctional
I think I
facility.
think I think I've seen people like. Do they use numbers? Isn't it common to use numbers for client IDs also? Like, or is it like a date? Or
You
is that?
can use
Mhm.
client ID numbers. Usually they use it in the case naming section
Okay.
for their matter numbers, for their billing numbers, but I have seen it in client ID.
Okay. Yeah, because like
Um,
I've seen it where like when I was searching for something. Oh, actually, no. The client ID I think is the name. I think like you said, when they make it in the case is when they put the number in.
People do it by number,
Yeah.
because everything to the left of a period or a point, is specific to the client. It's a unique number to the client, and then everything to the right of it is the case number associated with that client.
Okay.
So it'll always at the end be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and continuing that way, but the actual client ID is unique to the client. So I have seen where they just literally don't put a name and it's just that client ID number.
Okay.
And then the case name has that particular number within that client ID number. People do it different ways. It just depends.
Mhm.
I am not a number person. I need to see names.
Mhm.
Some people put numbers because that just works for them. So that way it's globally known and people can look it up pretty quickly.
Okay.
I'm going to hit OK so we can see we had an address and a contact this time, but no cases. So let's create a case. So we're going to select our client ID. We're going to go with Don Francisco. I think I spelled his name wrong, but that's okay. And then we'll have Fran. I'm working off a laptop screen today, so can't really
Yeah.
visually see.
Mhm.
All right, so case name, Francisco V. We don't want to put a period if you noticed.
Mhm.
It's red,
Will give us
so
an
period.
error.
No, but give us an error because it's a delimiter potential. So Francisco V. Pablo. I don't know. Matter number we can add here, or like you noticed, you can add a matter number here. I've seen people put it at the front. I've seen people just not put that Francisco v. Pablo and just put matter numbers. People have all different kinds of things. Matter number, if you put it here, then you can only see it in case details. That's why some people like to put it here in the naming convention so they can automatically identify it. Data directory, I tell all trainees not to touch this unless they specifically know what they were doing. There are some clients of ours that are well versed in SE, learning desktop. They have the data directory sent to different locations because they are a vendor.
Okay.
If they're not a vendor, they're a law firm, usually this just stays in one location, and I tell everyone don't touch that.
Okay.
Vendors save it all over because they put different clients on different servers and all kinds of different structures. You can change it, but we tell everyone not to. Otherwise, they're going to have case databases saved 80 different places. It might not get backed up, not be able to see this case, get errors, and then it just causes headaches for everyone. Case definition. So copy from an existing case. This is if you have a perfect case. So if we're now doing like a breach of contract case, and I know that I have a banana boat case that's pretty similar, I'm going to want all those same tags. I'm going to want all those same fields. I can choose it. I've also seen people create called templates. They have a bunch of cases that they've created with different fields and different tags, different redactions, different save searches kinds of things. And then they just have them like Bob's cases or Manuel cases or PII cases, and that's something for them to start with. There is a slight downfall in that.
Quick question.
Yes.
For that template part, would you make a client ID called template and then
Yes.
Okay, then you just put like the case, like it's probably the same thing, so you just like template for, like you said, like
Manuel, Bob's cases, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Load from case definition files, very similar. Basically, you would create those templates, that client ID, maybe templates, and then, case, Bob's Manuel cases. But this time, you're actually exporting a file out to your server or some other location, and then importing it back in. The benefit to doing this versus copying an existing case is that people can come into your template and change things around, and you wouldn't know. You'd go and be like, oh yeah, this banana boat case is perfect. You get to the end and you realize somebody deleted a bunch of your production tags, or they added a bunch of production tags, or they added things you didn't want, removed things you needed. They made edits to it and you had no idea. Because these are living, breathing cases.
Okay.
If you use the case definition file, it's that static capture in time, right? So you created a great template, you exported it, no one's messing with it. It doesn't matter if somebody came into the template case and changed everything. You get that CSE file that captured that moment in time that has what you needed.
And then is a CSE file just strictly just for Eclipse SE? Is that like just our own like proprietary file, or is that can be
I
from
believe
anything?
so.
Okay.
No, I believe it is our proprietary. We can get CSEs from our cloud product and bring it down. There are some complications. It does need to be tweaked a little bit in order to get the fields right, as well as going from desktop to the cloud. I don't know those specific tweaks. Our CSMs are working on some documentation with documentation team on how to do that.
Okay.
But I'm not privy to those conversations. I just know that they're working on it.
That works.
Yeah. So you would just browse out to your case definition file and grab it. So it's nice to have that static. You know what you're getting, as opposed to somebody may have come in here and changed a bunch of things.
Okay.
Load fields from a database load file or a data load file. That's like a .dat file. We don't recommend this on the regular. That could be because you don't have all the fields you actually need. Maybe you're only getting portions of the metadata fields that are available. Maybe you're not getting just, a date creation time. So now as you're loading native file information, you're not getting that date creation time. You don't realize that until the very end, and then you have to rebuild your entire database.
Okay.
That's
So
not.
so whenever it does, they do have a .dat file like coming in from another opposition or anything, do you recommend creating the case first and then importing the DAT file after?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. This is just gonna pull in fields. It's not gonna pull in actual data if we do it here.
Okay. Got it.
It's going to put everything to single value, so you will have to go and remap what's a native path, what's a extracted text path, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So it does take a little bit longer. I mean, you can do this so that way you can bring it in from the cloud. I've seen people pull it in from Clearwell this way. It can be done. It's just a lot of work.
Okay.
Default template option 4, I tell everyone this is the 13th floor of a building. It does not exist. Never use it. Reason being, if you look, these are the basics and necessary fields you need in order to have the database functioning, as well as a couple more. But it doesn't have your email to, from, sent, CC, BCC, date create time, date sent time. It has nothing like that.
Okay.
So if you start ingesting those native files, you're not capturing metadata.
Okay.
You're not going to have those fields, and you're going to get, halfway into your case, realize you don't have those fields and have to rebuild it from scratch, having to remember, what did you produce? How did you produce? You'll just end up with a mess and a lot of extra time spent.
So if a customer is looking for the email to, email from, what they'd have to do is just create a whole new case that's gonna give us right there. That's gonna give us the option for it.
Yeah, so if they have already created a use default template and they've already ingested data, you could do a semi-complicated load file.
Okay.
You would have to know the order in which they ingested and how they ingested in order to do that load file properly.
Okay.
Or create an entirely new database with the correct fields, load them in, and try to figure out how to map them. We
Yeah.
have had clients do that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of time. Yeah.
Yeah. I have some calls sometimes when they're like, I don't have this right here, and this is all they brought over, and I'm like, all right, well, we gotta figure out where the fields go, but okay, sounds good.
So if they don't have a perfect case, like a copy from an existing case or a CSE, option 5 is the best way to go. It's use native file ingestion template. It's got those basic ones. It's got your mail to, your mail from, CC, BCC. It's got a lot of those ESI type fields. It doesn't have every single ESI field, but it gets you a lot of the way there. They're very, if you go into the cloud system, obviously our cloud versions can pull a lot more fields and have more fields created. You can create those and see if you can pull in more, but these really are where you need. Step 3, this is where you can create or delete or edit the fields already in here. So let's create a new field, and we'll just do an attorney comments field. It's a pretty common one. So we'll make an attorney comments field. We have a single value option. We have a memo option. We have some other ones. Custodian, there can only be one custodian type field. We already have a custodian type field, so we can't select it. Single value can hold up to 1,000 characters. A memo field can hold up to a gig of text. We always suggest, especially for comments, keep it as single value. You would be inclined to do memo because that sounds like it would be a memo field. However, every document in your database having a memo field with text in it makes your index super huge, and it's going to slow down your searching.
So what is a field type? Because I see the single value and then multi-value. Like what exactly is a field type? Like
what can it hold? What are its parameters? Are there any rules related to it? So if it's a date time field, it's gonna, when you type it in, it has to be a date and a time.
Okay.
If you just type in a date, it's gonna say, nope, you're missing a time. If it's a dupe custodian field, again, there can only be one dupe custodian field in your database. That's when you run deduplication and made a file ingestion, and it sees that, oh, this file's already in here under so-and-so, so access into the duplicate custodian field because it's already in here. She's not the primary custodian.
What is the custodian, by the way? Is it just basically the user, like
The
the
owner
cases
of
and stuff?
the owner of the information.
Okay.
So if I extracted all of your emails today and put them into the database, you are the custodian of those emails. You owned those emails. Whether or
Got
not
it.
you sent them out or received them, they came from you.
Got it.
If I subpoenaed St. Joseph's Hospital, those are St. Joseph's Hospital's records. They're the custodian.
Okay.
They were in charge of maintaining them. Single value, again, can hold up to 1,000 characters, memos up to a gig. We suggest doing single value. If the attorneys hit over 1,000 characters, don't go switch it to memo. Go have a conversation with them and say, hey, I've noticed in the database you're putting a lot in this attorney comments field that says prep for witness Betty's depot, prep for witness Bob's depot. How about I create you tags? You don't have to type that information in. You can just tag the documents for the witnesses for their prep. That will cut down on what they're putting into that comments field. If you see other, commonalities that they're typing in a lot, make tags. It's a great opportunity just for a conversation instead of having to turn it into a memo field and them having, novels worth and really
Okay.
slowing down your database.
So single value is 1,000 characters, and then memo fields 1 gig.
Yep,
Okay.
a text. Yep. All right, so include in full text index, make that field searchable. Use spell check. If you do select use spell check only functions in record view and not case view. We'll see the difference today. I think we might be able to get to it. So if they do check spell check, it's only going to function in record view, not case view.
Okay.
Flags. Is it going to be a sort key? Are you going to make it a sortable field? Is it going to be a primary sortable key? That's a control number. We already have control number for BegDoc. Everything in this has to be unique. Attorney comments isn't going to be that way, so we don't want to make it that way. We can make it a category. Categories have some options and batches that are really nice, but again, it's attorney comments. We're not really categorizing attorney comments. They're not going to have, some consistency that way.
Mhm.
So we'll just make it a sort key, or we can even make it none. If we did, and it wasn't attorney comments, and it was more like something like an author field. I think we already have an author field, but we'll use that. We can use a pick list or a doc type. Maybe we'll talk about a doc type field. If we use a pick list for a doc type field, it kind of works like Google. So if I type in E and I have on my pick list type email, it's going to automatically say, hey, like, here's an email. Is this the word you wanted to type? And I'll be like, yeah, that's the word I wanted to type. If it's not, I can still add whatever word I wanted to type. Maybe it's extracted text or something. I don't know, something else that starts with an E.
Okay.
This is just options, quick selections. Control list means that I can only pick those words. Control list is really nice if you have a lot of people coding. We'll take it here. So if I had email, attachment, contract.
Okay.
Email can be spelled with a dash. People can put it just as mail.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have a lot of different variations for the same thing. And you don't want that when you're coding because you could potentially miss some documentation.
So would you want to put it on both of them? So you put email and then the next one would be e-mail, or you just
No, you just want to
okay.
keep it to one version.
Got it.
Yeah, so that way, if you wanted to search all the emails in your database, and you coded it this way, because maybe it was a bunch of PDFs you ingested, so it really doesn't have metadata.
Okay.
So you've coded everything, whether it's an email attachment or a contract, you want to search emails, you type in that search emails, it's going to pop up everything that has email on it for that, field. And that way you have consistency.
And when you're talking about the search, are you talking about like in desktop when like it has a
Yes,
search bar?
an
Okay,
advanced search or that search bar, yeah.
got it.
Yep. So people use this control list to control what's being typed into that field and make sure there's that consistency, because people will call contracts also agreements. Well, if I'm only Googling, or not Googling, if I'm only searching contract, I'm going to miss everything that somebody coded us as agreements. It also works well with names. You could use a name list, same functionality. People spell Brittany like this. There's like 80,000 ways to spell Brittany, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm not paying attention and I code the author as Brittany, somebody else codes it like this. Maybe another person's used to seeing Brittany that way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what am I searching? If I go to see all records created by Brittany or contain Brittany, I'm going to miss some Brittany's, because inevitably I'm not going to spell all of these that way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's why people use those control kind of lists. It keeps some commonality. You can restrict users from editing these fields. You can restrict users from even seeing these fields. All you do is say, okay, if it's update, they can that field. If it's view only, they can see it, but they can't make changes to it. Denying access means they can't even see it. You would just add users here and then assign them whether or not they can view it, update it, deny access altogether.
Okay.
It's not super common to use those controls, but it
Mm-hmm.
can be.
It has the option. You just have the option to do it. Mm-hmm.
So I have seen some admins come in here and for like UTC date time, for mail to from, they lock it down so that way the attorneys can't accidentally edit these fields.
Okay.
People can't come in here and accidentally code real metadata fields. But sometimes you're ingesting PDFs and they're emails, so you need to edit those fields. So maybe they'll let some people edit those fields, but not every person. So they can make the changes that way.
Okay.
Step 4 is create tag palettes. So we use a native file ingestion template, which means it doesn't have any tags associated with it. So we have to create our tag palette. So we first create groups and then we create tags under those groups. So we kind of have a structure. So we can do one per line. We can create multiple groups at a time. It makes it a lot easier. So a common one is relevancy. Can't spell relevancy today. Another common one is confidentiality. Productions and depot prep. Comment depot prep. So we've created 4 groups, and now we have 4 groups. We do have group rules that we can associate with each group relating to tags. So we'll talk about those first. Exclusive means that any tags under this group, only one tag can be chosen. So that's really good for maybe relevancy, because you can't have a document that's both relevant and irrelevant, right? That makes no sense. So it can only be one. It's either relevant or irrelevant. Maybe you might even have a needs further review, but that way you're not duplicating.
What do you mean? What do you mean by relevant? Does it mean like just saying like say if
Relevant
it's
to
like
the case.
okay.
So maybe I'm working on a case related to a contract with a food vendor called Trinity Food Service.
Okay.
So I've asked for a bunch of emails from the client related to Trinity. You know, they did a search in Outlook, grabbed everything that was related to Trinity in a certain time frame. I'm looking at the documents and I realize this guy's kid went to Trinity High School.
Okay.
So I'm getting a bunch of like newsletters and fundraisers and kids' pictures from Trinity High School because it's Trinity. Those would be non-relevant documents because they have nothing to do with the case. They just happen to have that word Trinity in it.
And then what it says like tag group and all that, is this like a document tag or like a page tag? Or is that like some two different things later?
We can assign whether or not it's that
Okay.
in our case options.
Okay.
They can be either at this point right now. And then when we get into case options, we can assign whether or not these are document level or document and page level.
Okay, when we get closer to that, I just need I guess a better understanding of like the vocabulary, like words like people use, like doc tags and page tags. But okay, sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. So required just means that they have to select something when they're working in batches. They have to select a tag before moving on. If you're just within your regular case, there will be alerts at the bottom left-hand corner that says, hey, this is a required field, but it'll let you continue. If you're working in a batch, it will not let you continue. You have to select a tag from there.
Okay.
Locked means that that tag group, no one can tag to it right now. I always suggest it before you run your production, if you have a production tag, lock that tag group so that way no one can try to sneak in documents at the end. That happens a lot. What happens is you'll be like, okay, we're going to do our production. I'm going to run it now. Someone's inevitably in the database tagging more documents or removing documents or, changing something. They might get it in before you press that start button. They might not. If they get it in before you press that start button, things that are being produced you may not know of. Maybe you didn't have it in your index. Maybe you didn't tag it with your privilege stuff. Maybe you didn't QC it. You're producing stuff you didn't know you were producing. The other way around is that people were tagging things. They expected it to be produced, but they pushed that button after you pushed produce or start. And now you have documents tagged as if they went under that first production, but they never actually were produced. Then you'll get to time of trial and realize that you have documents that weren't produced.
So were you saying that you should lock it now or lock it before you do production?
Lock it right before you do your production.
Okay.
Required child tag. So you can do some nested tags. So if I put maybe relevancy yes or no, and then maybe if they checked yes, then they're required to check. Maybe have a sub tag that says relevant to the contract, relevant to the agreement, relevant to duty, or something like that. Maybe some elements of the claims at hand. People, I've also seen it do with confidential. So they have a yes, no, and then under yes is what type of confidentiality. Is it attorney-client privilege? Is it work product doctrine? Is it subject to a protective order? People can do child tags that way. Tag entire family means that if you tag a document with attachments, those attachments will also carry that tag. So if I have an email that's relevant, all the attachments will automatically be tagged relevant. If I tag an attachment as relevant, the email, the main part, will also be tagged relevant.
Okay, so everything connected to like someone you get like, is it a PST or is it just on the email that like, say if like I send, okay, so like if I sent you an email that has a PDF, an image, and a Word document, those will all be connected to like email one, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So just an email and its attachments. There's no threading, so it wouldn't tag like in a thread, like it would maybe in our cloud documentation. This would just be the email and its attachments. So let's create some tags. So let's do under confidential, we'll do attorney-client priv. Work product doctrine and subject to PO. We'll do those for that one. Maybe for productions, we'll do a production today. Yes, and 2020-05-27. And do
And then are like, so I know you're just typing in right there, but is a PLF like the plaintiff and then
yes. So
okay, plaintiff
PLF is a common
acronym
shortened
or like
version. Yeah, for plaintiff. DEF is common for defendant. EXP common for expert, and IDS would be initial disclosure statement.
Okay.
SDS would be supplemental disclosure statement, and then there'll usually be numbers associated with it.
Cool.
So it'll be the first supplemental, the second supplemental.
Perfect.
So I create a couple tags. So we have plaintiff's initial disclosure statement, maybe an expert disclosure statement, and then defendant's initial disclosure statement. We can tag documents with this for production for us if we're plaintiffs. And then maybe we'll tag documents that we get in from defendant, so that way we can run searches on what they produced. Depot prep, we'll create a couple tabs here. Witness, Betty Collins, witness, Bob, expert, witness, Dr. Phil. Right. So I'm gonna put some ones here. If we want to put some, let's see, we'll put some rules on here. So maybe this one we'll make exclusive. It's probably not normally exclusive, but we could make it exclusive. We can lock some things, maybe tag entire families for this one. Maybe same thing here, but not this one. We can just assign some rules. At the tag level, we have a couple options. So we can show on default palette, so it shows for everyone. We can include in a privilege report, and we can always add information to a privilege report later, but these will automatically populate in that privilege report. So maybe these confidential tags we want to include in a privilege report. So that way we can run a report of what documents we tagged attorney-client privilege and didn't produce. Same with work product doctrine or subject to protective order.
What is a privilege report?
Send out saying, we did these documents because.
Sorry, it cut out right there. What was that again? Sorry about that.
We redacted these documents because we
Okay.
didn't produce these documents, didn't give you this particular base range because.
Got it.
So it's just a report that says, hey, this fell under attorney-client privilege, so you're not allowed to have it. This came under work product doctrine. You're not allowed to have it. This is subject to protective order. So once we have a protective order in place, we'll give you these base ranges.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It comes with a couple different metadata fields. Obviously, it can't come with everything because you might as well be producing that, or it'll give away what you withheld. So cautious about what kind of information, usually date sent to or from, if it's an email, or maybe the author of the document, sometimes the file name, not always. But just enough information to kind of give them an idea of why it was protected.
Okay.
We can create shortcut keys associated with them. So if we want to make subject to protective order with the letter P, so if I do control P, it's automatically going to tag something subject to protective order. You do that. Transcript issues, maybe we'll do that for depot prep. We can create transcript issues as well. They do not sync. So it's not like, oh, if I tag a document with this tag, it's going to somehow associate with a transcript. No, it's just also creating these issues with your transcripts. So that way you can also do this. You don't have to recreate it again. It's just saving you a step, but there's no linking. So push OK. We have all our tags, our tag groups, privilege log, our shortcut key here for subject to PL. Step 5 is our redaction palette. We already come with one, just a basic black redaction. To add more, we select modify redaction palette, and then that sunburst star. Maybe we'll do this PII, that's personally identifiable information. We can change the font, we can change the color of the font, we can change the redaction color, maybe we'll make it orange instead of red. Maybe we can just make it black with white font. We can do whatever we want. So I'll make a couple. That way. So I made a couple. Initially, people were like, well, I don't want it color-coded because I don't want it to produce color-coded. That's a functionality in production that we can override. So we can say force everything to black and white, whether it's a white redaction with black text, or black redaction with white text. We
Okay.
can force it to take out that color. Or I have seen people do their redactions with the color, and then it prevents them from having to do a privilege log because they've given the key over to the other side saying, okay, if it's, blacked out as pink, it's minor child's names. If it's blacked out as orange, it's personally identifiable information. I didn't have to give you an Excel spreadsheet. You can just look at the document and automatically be like, oh yeah, that's why I don't see this information.
Okay. And then this could be modified after we create the case also, right?
Yes.
Okay, in the database.
Mhm.
Okay.
Step 6 are case options. So this is that tagging information. So limit tags to document level. So the whole document gets tagged with whatever we created on that tag palette. Limit tags to page level. No one ever chooses this one. That means you have to tag every single page. They don't get automatically tagged for you. Or allow tagging at either document or page level. So there will be 2 different tabs on your tag palette in desktop. One that says doc tags, one that says page tags. So if you're in the doc tags and you tag it as attorney-client privilege, it applies to the entire document. If you're on the page tab, it's only applying to that page, not the entire document. Some law firms like that because maybe they have a contract and the contract isn't confidential. It's publicly viewable information. But the attachments, like how much they're paying for food or how much they're paying for beds or something like that, that's private information. So I might want to pages of the contract with nothing, the attachments, and tag each page of those attachments with confidential. If I tagged the entire document as confidential, that may not be accurate. Does that make sense?
So you're saying that go ahead do that again. I'm trying to process it in my head.
Okay, so if I did a document level tagging,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to apply to the entire document.
Okay.
So that entire document's going to be confidential. Maybe the entire document's not confidential. Maybe the first 10 pages are not confidential and the last 10 pages are confidential.
Okay.
So I'd want to do page level tagging, skip those first 10, not tag them as anything, get to that 11th page and start tagging each page individually on that page level as confidential. So
Okay.
that way, when I run a production, maybe I can burn that confidentiality stamp onto those particular pages.
Okay, so maybe if it's like maybe it's like 15 pages and the first 10 are okay, but in the page 11 is not. It'll say you can't see 11 and go back to 12, 13, 14, 15 being seeable, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Is it just safe just to go to that bottom part right there where you just put allow tagging at either document or page level?
I am a document or page level person. There are a lot of our clients who stick with document level. And if they need to otherwise identify documents, they'll do a doc break.
Okay.
So in my contract, where the contract itself isn't confidential but the attachments are, they'll break the contract from the attachments.
Got it.
And then tag the attachment block as confidential.
Okay.
For me, I do page level, but that's just my preference. History tracking options, they are kind of like tattletales, right? You see what other people are doing, but it's nice for statistics and analytics. So a lot of the times, if you have a contentious case or you're compelled to produce something, the judge will say, okay, I know you had an objection to producing these things. I'm overruling your objection. You have to produce all these emails from these 10 custodians in 2 weeks. That might be feasible. That might not be. If you come back and look at these analytics, you can see that, oh, even if I have 10 paralegals, I can't get through these 500,000 pages or 500,000 records in 2 weeks. So
crazy.
I can go back to the court or I can say, hey, I can't get these done in 2 weeks. I can get 100,000 documents reviewed and out the door in 2 weeks. Can we do a rolling production? Can we pick which custodians you want first and then we'll, work on the other ones? You can manage client expectations. So you can say, okay, I just did a case like this. It took my paralegals, 75 hours to get through, the first 3 months of litigation. That's $75,000 for you. Are you prepared to spend $75,000 in the next 3 months for this case? Is it worth it to you? Because we're only suing for $100,000. Kind of checks and balances that way.
That's crazy.
Date format, that just depends how you like to see your dates. I mean, it really doesn't have any relevance outside of that. How do you like to see your dates? Are you a month,
Okay.
day, year person, or you're a month, date person? Like slashes, periods, hyphens. How do you like to see those empty dates? Do you like to see them empty and you're good with it? Do you want it to fill it with zeros? Do you want it to fill it to nines? I know a lot of people who like to fill it to nines because then it sorts to the bottom and then they know that they need to be done. Some
Okay.
people like it with zeros because they sort to the top and they know it needs to be done. Some like it blank. I'm a blank person because then I know it needs to be done.
Okay.
And then I can tally and automatically see all the blank dates. And then I can just select that tally and start coding there.
Okay. So when you said that, so do not allow partial dates, is that the one where like it'll come up with an error, or which one's the one where you said like leave empty? Is it you just select nothing and it'll leave it empty? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
For the date?
Yeah. So if we
Okay.
don't put anything, it'll just leave it empty.
Okay.
Import options, make sure everyone checks this. It's automatically checked to make sure they don't deselect it. If they don't validate before they do their load file, they could potentially be importing things incorrectly
Okay.
and then spend 2 hours trying to fix it where they could have spent 2 seconds to validate it and prevents that from happening. So it's a 2-second process that could save 2 hours. Native time zone is very contentious, hot topic for us. At IPRO, we recommend doing UTC time. So that way, when you do a chronological sort on the time, your emails come in true chronological order, and it doesn't look like people are, emailing over each other when they're in different time zones.
Okay.
Want it to be their native time zone because when they do sometimes it goes into the next day or the day prior. They have to do some calculations from that UTC date, and it just creates complications on their end for their viewers. So they do it with native time zone, and they just don't sort, or they know, generally speaking, that if they email with Arizona, it's going to be slightly different.
Okay, so when it goes to UTC, does that mean like it just if it's like 4 o'clock here and then like 7 o'clock somewhere else, is it just a universal one where like I guess what I
Yeah, it's
don't
going to go to that Greenwich time
okay.
and
So
then be
so
like,
so
oh, this
so
is 4 hours out, this is 6 hours out.
got it.
And then do a calculation based on where we were and yeah. So
Okay, so you just leave it
it requires
UTC.
math. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, that's all I need to know. Just better just leave it UTC. Got it.
Yeah. So IPRO says you leave it UTC. We have a lot of clients who are like, no, we like it to be, whatever the normal time is. So what do we have here? Arizona. Yeah. So we could change it to Arizona and everything would be processed at Arizona time.
Okay.
Disable stop word list. Don't ever let anyone disable that stop word list. You can modify the stop word list if you have words that you definitely want to search.
Okay.
If you disable it, it's going to bring in all those junk words. So words like not, as, this, will, have, a,
Just
on, those
common
common
words.
words.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll index those, make your searching terribly frustrating and long. You might even have like bad searches because it's picking up those junk words. Don't disable it. Step 7 is just kind of a review. This is also where you can modify those stop words. So if your client's acronym is AND, just take it out. So that way you can search it. It's not that big of a deal. I have had Canadian clients who add some common, Canadian junk words and common Spanish junk words that just don't have like tildes and stuff like that. So it'll kind of weed out those as well. We have 128 stop words. We have 58 field definitions, our image key or control number is vecdoc, and then we can assign a case admin should we want to. Then create our case, and pretty much instantaneously it builds that database for us.
Okay.
So we do have a 7-step process. It's really pretty much only 6. But depending on whether or not whichever case definition you use, it can be super easy, quick, and easy, or it might take a little bit more work, like if you use that native file ingestion.
Okay.
Case management. This is where we can manage our case. So we select our client ID, select our case. We can modify a case information. So if we need to change it back to document level instead of document or page, we can do that. Turn on our tracking options. If we need to fill in those empty dates, we can. Change that UTC time, whatever we need. We can delete a case from here. We can export that CSV and choose what we want to export. If we did in desktop a particular layout we really like and we want to see it in other cases, we can do that here. And we can also rename our case.
Okay. Quick question on delete the case. So when you delete the case, it doesn't actually delete the files that are inside the case, right? You have to delete that on the back end.
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure because I had a customer or user call in asking about that. Okay.
Yeah. Actually, delete the record. Instructions, we can upload Word documents, PDF, text files to kind of give the reviewer instructions on how to review. Case documents, pleadings, this could be the complaint, this could be discovery documents like requests for productions. On the other side, asking you, hey, this be between 2016 and 2018. That could be the request for or production. So then we'd start tagging those documents that fit within that request. Alerts can be like deadlines, upcoming pending dates, those kinds of things. Some clients use these, some clients don't. A lot of the time in instructions, I see people doing those search syntax quick sheets or orientation for the desktop to kind of give their reviewers a little bit more help if it's new to them. Database fields, again, we can add or subtract or edit any of our fields here. Groups and users, add or remove groups and users, add or remove tags, same with redaction palette, same with our stop words. We can check what's in our database here. We're not actually seeing the document, we're just kind of seeing some metadata, some pathing, where their volume path is saved. Image file saved, page OCR, so that text file where that is, some of our metadata fields.
Mm-hmm. So whenever I did this, sometimes like say if they loaded like a file, but in the I guess the parentheses it shows 0. Does that mean there's like no image or data
Correct.
inside of it? Okay.
There's no images, so it would
Okay.
just be like a native file.
Okay.
If the native file was given. Reports. So a gaps report will say, okay, you have a gaps in your vecdoc number, your control number. So you're processing everything with the prefix rev, and in that process, you missed rev 45. Why did you have that gap? Is it explainable? Is it not explainable? You can do the same thing with people producing to you. You can run a gaps report and make sure it, coincides with maybe a privilege report. When they say, hey, we're not giving you these baits ranges, you can make sure that they really did or they didn't, or they're not removing additional documents that they didn't say. In contentious ones, people run those gaps reports all the time. Volume path report, where are those volume paths saved? Duplicates, what kind of duplicates do I have in my database? Broken file links, do I have any broken native file links, text file links? Did something get renamed somewhere in a folder that screwed up my paths? What's broken, what's not? Production shield, this is for productions. It's kind of like an extra safety measure, so that way you don't have to go doing a clawback letter or chase down the FedEx man. You do what's kind of like a reverse search. So you say any documents tagged attorney-client privilege will not be produced. It's looks like just like our advanced search. We do maybe tags, doc tags, select attorney-client privilege tagged, change our search connector to nothing. So doc tags, attorney-client privilege tagged, those documents will not be produced. We'll call it ACP for attorney-client privilege. So now that this is intact, when you go to run a production, if any of those documents were tagged attorney-client privilege, it will prompt you and say, hey, you can override this, or I'm stopping you. Do you want to include these documents or not?
Quick question on, like, when you built that search right there, how you took it off the and or, what if you left it on there? Will it mess it up? If you don't,
Nope.
but as long as anything that's after that, you should be okay, right? So yeah. Like, okay.
Yeah, so if I have like this, because there's nothing after the and, it's just going to ignore it.
Got it. Cool.
Transcripts, this is where you can import your transcripts here on the right-hand side. Browse out to your transcripts. So, browse out, I can add, oh, I have to add some more, import transcripts, and I'll start importing my transcripts. I can modify my issue palette, I can add issues to it, be able to code and review kind of like a highlighter to my transcripts. Keywords, I can do kind of persistent highlighting. You do have to do groups and then keywords. So maybe we'll call this hot key terms. And words like Australia, Antigo, Tiga, travel, airplane, and flight. Maybe for some reason those are key terms here, right? They'll be in black text and highlighted yellow, or I can change it to maybe dark green and magenta. That's actually not a great color combination, right?
Yeah.
Let's do, look at a magenta. I don't know. We can have them all kinds of different groups. We can do priv group. Maybe put some names in there, and then every time their name is up in the extracted text, it will be this yellow color. It's kind of how things. So if maybe I had communications with attorneys, that might be attorney-client privilege information. I put in their email addresses here or their names. And then anytime I saw that pink highlight, I wouldn't have to really read through the document. I'd automatically know it's going to be tagged attorney-client privilege. I don't have to waste my time reading this document. It's done, next document. So it might make it easier. Might also pull out, words or key things that I wouldn't normally see when I was reading it. Just draw things to my attention. Coding forms, they can have multiple uses. Most people use them in batches. Be nice for attorneys. So a lot of the times, attorneys do not want to use databases because it's just too much information. It's too overwhelming. They have these 58 fields that they have to scroll through. It's just too much, right? Maybe all they really need to see is a beg doc number, maybe a custodian field, a creation date and time field, maybe some tos and froms and CCCs. I don't know where my to goes. Don't really need to see the MD5 hash value. SHA-1 hash value makes no difference to them.
Okay.
Maybe UTC date time, something like that. Date time.
Wait, are you selecting the ones that you want to see or the ones that you don't care?
I'm only selecting the ones I want to see. So these are all the available fields and these are the selected fields. So these are all the fields I want to see. Maybe attorney comments in here too. These are all the ones I want to see. I can change which order I want to see them in. I want to put them this way.
So it's always a safe bet when you create a case that you remember how we created a case with the I think it was option 5 where it'll take any like metadata that that we receive, and then to make it smaller we could just do it here, right, on the new coding forms to say if they only wanted the beg doc custodian. Hello?
Did I turn?
Oh, there we go. We're back.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
So yeah, so it's just better to get as much data as you can in the beginning, and then whatever, like say it's like I only want beg doc custodian, then we can bring it out, like break it down over here.
Yeah, you're
Okay,
only seeing this information
got it.
kind of thing. Attorney Jim. Maybe Attorney Jim doesn't want to be overwhelmed with all those fields, so we're only doing those. We can choose that he only sees maybe a couple tags, right?
Mhm.
Maybe he only wants to see these tags, nothing else. Maybe we can make rules associated with this when he's working in a batch. If he selects tag expert witness Dave, then it's tagged, then field attorney comments must not be empty. So this says if he tags something prep, then he must go Dr. Dave, Dr. Batch don't go. All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry. My little hub is going out or something like that. Oh.
Yeah, it's starting to sound a little choppy, where it's like
Let me see if I can plug it in somewhere else.
well, and just a lot of people are home, and then
Can you hear now? Maybe?
a little bit. It's just sound. It's not as bad, but yeah.
All right, I don't know what's going on, and now I'm having.
No, no, yeah. This one sounds better. Yeah, I can hear you clear now.
Okay. All right, now I'm having some power problems. Let me go see if maybe it's not working properly. Darn electronics. Okay, so hopefully, right, I plugged my headphones into the actual computer, so hopefully this USB port doesn't have like a turn off or something. So basically, this is a rule that says when they're working in batches, if they tag witness Dave, they have to fill out that attorney comments field. And you can build it kind of different ways. If a field attorney comments is not empty, so something is in there, maybe they have to select a tag.
Okay.
Build it that way. But it's just different rules that can kind of be helpful when coding. Make sure
Okay.
that, whether or not it's relevant is tagged. Make sure that whether or not it goes to a person or something like that.
Okay, so and this is only for Attorney Jim, right? So like, say if
Yes.
okay, got it.
So this is where the security comes in. We've made this for Attorney Jim, so we're only going to have, we'll say J Smith is Jim.
Okay.
Only J Smith can see this coding form. If I made it for coding form review pass 1, so maybe the first review of documents, I could assign a bunch of people to it who's ever doing the first pass review. And then they could all see it, or they could all use it. So I can set up who sees it or who's not. In this case, we made it for someone specific. Options, we can give date ranges, default case view, sort index. We don't have an index. Sorted, created. So that's moot at this point. Shortcut keys, we can assign shortcut keys to particular fields. So we were going to create a rule for attorney-client comments. Maybe Alt-2 will automatically make that field editable.
Okay.
Then we hit OK. And now Jim can access this in the main case. So just has to go to the coding form section and get this coding form. Or if he's in a batch, we could assign this particular coding form to a batch, and then that's what he'll see.
Okay.
Indexes, this is just sorting. So right now it's kind of defaulting on that begdoc sort. We can make it maybe sort on a last date saved. And then maybe a receive date time. And we make that index. And then that overrides a particular index. And then you just rebuild your index to be based on that particular sorting field. So like right now, everything's on begdoc field, so it would keep all the families together. If I moved it to this one, it would be last date saved time or mail date received time, and it's going to resort everything. It might not keep those families together
Okay.
in a sense when you're sorting.
And then essentially the index is just basically just like I guess the values of each word, right? Is it just like like the dictionary? Is that
Yeah.
what it is? Okay.
Yep. And then this will just keep that sort value. Not a lot of people use it, but it's there. And it's nice to have if you need to. I have had some clients who want some pretty tricky indexing.
Okay.
Case utilities, this is where you can rebuild your index, flush your index, repair your index, do your archive and backup. You can bulk tag. So if I got in, what's my case? If I got in a bunch of documents that were from defendant's initial disclosure statement, right?
Okay.
And as an admin, my job is to make sure anytime I ingest opposing counsel's documents is to automatically tag them
Okay.
with whatever tag they're relevant to in not a review sense, but hey, they just gave me their initial disclosure statement with these 300 documents. I'm going to put in that image key range, right? And give those two base ranges and then tag defendant's initial disclosure statement. And it'll
Okay.
automatically tag those documents. They don't have to be in review and go through a search method, nothing like that. It's just
Awesome.
automatically done for them.
I didn't know that was possible. I seen the tag before, but I didn't know what it really did. But that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it'll help that bulk tagging. So it can help the reviewers on the view end. And then because we had document and page level tagging, we have those options here. We also have both. Image rotation search, so you can see how images were rotated. You can technically change them if people were rotating things. Global search and replace is not super common. Maybe you had an attorney comments field and then you realize there's also a comments field or you needed to change it. You can copy everything from attorney comments field over to comments field. You can copy everything from a beg no field over to a prod beg no field. So maybe I brought in defendant's initial disclosure statement. It was all PDFs. I broke them up. I put in their image key range. And because that beg no number is actually a prod beg no, I can say maybe I want that field copied over to another field. I don't have a beg no option here, so that's not a good idea. We have to do it a different way. But maybe custodian, we need to repopulate it. But like, find and replace. I can replace an entire field with text. Append, so add. Prepend, so put at the beginning, so like a prefix. Delete data in a particular field, so maybe I just need to globally delete everything for last saved by.
Okay.
Do a search and replace. So if I typed in Brittany, but her real name is spelled like this, I could do a global replace for Brittany.
Could would this also work? Does this change the meta fields or the what's in there? Because like I've seen to where, we call it beg doc, but then all of a sudden, for some reason when they got the file back, it's like prod beg instead
Yes,
or
so
something like that.
so begdoc is a control number, and then prod begdoc is a Bates number. So what it was produced under, which is going to be different than a begdoc field.
Okay.
We wouldn't do this particular way for it. This would be
Okay.
more for like changing names, copying file name to file path or something like that.
Got it.
Global spell check. So doing that massive spell check on a particular case or a particular field. Data normalization, same thing, pick which documents, and then maybe author field, make sure they're normalized, make sure they don't have anything weird in them. Validate image and native file paths. You know, is there anything broken? Are there any paths broken in here? And then managing your file paths.
Mhm.
So if I had maybe a bunch of documents from, you know, a section, I want to search for this C drive path and I need to replace it with the UNC path. This is where I would do it. But this is just for the volume path.
See, that's where I got it confused right there. Or this what I would use, because like a lot of people would have, like, you know, like I said, they move their image folder to another folder,
Right.
and it would just swap. I got confused because in, say, if it was like C dot slash slash my documents and then hyphen file one, but they moved it to the server, which would be like you know, blah blah blah. Like I thought you could just replace it, like, you know, like just like the whole thing, but it's all depending on like, I guess I just get confused on where like the slashes and stuff go, because you always have to you always have to put a slash at the end, correct?
No, you don't have to. It just
Okay.
depends on how far you're replacing.
Okay.
So let's say I want to search. So I originally, everything was passed to here,
Mhm.
but it's not saved there anymore, right?
Mhm.
Then I browse out to where it is saved, but only go out to maybe the folder. And then
Okay.
that would be your search for this, and I want to replace it with this. So this one's a C drive. I want it to be a UNC path. So now I have my UNC path in there.
Okay. Do I want to put it the whole thing, like, you know, where it says like sample data, all that stuff, or is it just
No,
mostly?
just as far as you need to, kind of before it starts getting
Okay, so yeah, someone told me it was
specific
like,
to the doc.
yeah, less is kind of better. So if it's like,
Yes.
if I'm like, yeah, like you said, C drive to the G drive, just be like, hey, switch to C drive to G drive. Got it.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, less is more in that kind of sense. As long as it gets you to the same path, you're good. Only
And
go
then
as far as you absolutely need to.
question too, because I've had this pop up too. So they use they ingest the PDF as an image, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also the native, because then also, you know, they just want to just ingest a PDF. Do I select image and native path if they both get it from the same PDF, or how do I change that?
So what you're actually describing is not proper methodology. So,
Okay.
um, yeah, you could do that. The image path is typically going to be at a page level. I mean, it could
Okay.
be at a document level, so it might get a little wonky.
Okay, maybe, yeah, maybe that was just a one-off case, because I remember when I asked her that, she was just like, no, like my images were only the PDF, and I was like, oh, where's the native? And she sent me to the same spot, and I was like, okay,
Yeah, I mean, you
so
can do it that way. You just need to make sure that they're set up properly because there
got
could be some problems. It's not,
mhm,
it just depends on how they had it set up. But
got it.
yes, you could
Okay,
in the right condition. All right, let's take, it is 8:17. Let's take a break until 8:30.
okay,
Get a
perfect.
drink, do whatever. I'm gonna put myself on mute and then at 8:30, I will go off mute. And
All right, cool.
hopefully I'll have my headphones all set up properly.
All right, I'll see you soon.
All right. Recording. All right, so we talked about managing data paths. Now we have import and export data. So let's import some data from a load file. So we select our client, we select our case. It automatically generates a job name. I like to recommend everyone kind of change this to something that better describes what kind of load file you're putting in. So I would do the ingestion date or the date it was produced to me. We'll call this DEF IDS. We'll say it's defendant's initial disclosure statement that they sent us a load file and all the files for. I like to do that because in the back end, it will create a folder for today's date because that's the day you ingested it. But then it'll create this folder based on the job name. So then I'll know a defendant's initial disclosure statement is what these documents were. That's what I ingested on this date. and when they gave it to me, so then I can go find, the actual pleading that it's associated with. So if I ever do need to rebuild my database, I have paths of what I did, or if I need to defend my methodology for ingesting documentation, I have it and it's very clear. I don't have to guess, oh, well, just this was the job number, just go with me that this is what it is.
Got it.
This kind of definitively does that. Import file, so I browse up to where that file is. We suggest doing everything off a UNC path, whether it's native or ingestion, import kind of thing. We'll go to sample data, training data, SE training data, imports. It's a really long path. With load files, prod is typically this folder structure right here is generally what you're going to get. The rest is where you choose to save it. So then we'll go to load files, and we're going to bring in the DAT file first. So the information. Number of sample records, just how many records do I want to see, kind of sift through, is the first line a header. So we'll see that our columns are field 1, field 2, and then our first row that should be data is actually headers. So our first line is actually the header. So we can fix it. So now our columns are actually headers, and our first entry in our data line is actual data. So that's GLX1. And then we just kind of want to look through this sample view and make sure, our custodian field is actually with a name and not some sort of number like a Bates number. That our mail sent date field is actually a date field and not someone's name or Ray history. If so, it might be a delimiter problem. Go ahead.
So this is it's usually in a perfect world. So data. So the DAT file is just the data, right? Which is going to be like the meta fields and everything. What is an LFP like exactly?
An LFP is another type. An LFP
Load file,
is
right? A load file in this.
yeah, it's just another file. It can bring in tags and orientation, if I recall correctly.
Is that going to be like so? Is our best bet to get a DAT file? So if we're provided a DAT file, an LFP file, and what's the other one? It's a OLP. Which one do you recommend out of those three? Like if we want to like.
So most of the time for US customers, that file is what's ingested. If they give you an LFP file and it has tagging, then you bring in the tagging.
Okay.
They just have to know what that LFP file has. Does it have tags associated? Did they give you tags? That kind of information.
So if you're provided a DAT file and an LFP file, say, so you'd want to import the DAT file first, and then would it be append the LFP onto the case?
I mean, you could. Or you just bring in the LFP, ignore the DAT.
Got it.
Yep. Typically when you're getting it produced to you, no one's giving you tags.
Got it.
So in the US, DAT's pretty common that they'll give to you. In Canada, LFP is pretty common. And they don't give you DAT.
Okay.
Here, they mostly give you DAT.
Okay, that kind of makes sense now, because then usually like when we make our tickets, they'll give us the email and it'll be like .ca or .com, and then I see, yeah, it's like half and half is what I get. People kind of like, some people will be like, oh, here's my DAT file. A lot of people will be like, here's my LFP file. So that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, essentially they're the same. They all contain metadata fields. They all contain pathing, that kind of stuff. The LFP will bring in tags. Most people aren't giving you tags if they're opposing.
Got it.
They're not going to give you your work product. So just kind of see what they have. Some people give you all files possible just so that way they don't have to go and recreate something. So just bring in what you want. The stat file does not bring in the images, so you will have to import an OPT file, which is like an Opticon file. So we'll go through that process as well. It's the same process, just slightly different.
Okay.
So we're looking at these. These fields seem to be good. If they're not, we can change the delimiters here.
Okay.
I'll just show you real quick. If it comes in like this, obviously that's not right? Everything's going into one field. That doesn't look right. We could change our field delimiters until it looks right.
Okay.
Date format, this is what most people miss. So our date format here in our load file is month, day, year. We need to switch this date format to month, day, year. A lot of people miss that.
Got it.
You can do a batch import. It's pretty rare. You would have to have an exact duplicate kind of thing going on here. So if
Okay.
you had opposing counsel producing you their initial disclosure statement and they gave you a load file per custodian. So let's say all these records were related to custodian Ariana Ackers.
Okay.
And they gave you another load file that was related to Betty Drill or something like that.
Okay.
If the columns, the word heading matched exactly the same, they were in the exact same order, you could then also upload that other load file here and it would
Okay.
process it the same way.
Okay.
If anything was slightly off, it will mess up your database. So if this mail from and mail to were transposed in the other file,
Uh-huh.
so the to came before the from, then it's going to mess up your to and from field because it's going to process it the same way it processed the first one.
So how would you do it? Would you just import them two separate ways
Yep.
into the case? Okay, got it.
Yep. Just do it separately instead of a batch or a bulk.
Got it. Okay, so that's just mostly just for like an easy, if everything matches correctly, go ahead and do them two at the same time. But if they don't, then you have to do them one each.
Yeah.
Got it.
And typically you're only getting one DAT file anyway. People
Mhm.
aren't breaking them up. But in the off chance you do get them broken up, you can do it that way.
No, that's good because in any curveball I get, it's always a good thing to know some sort of information on it.
Map fields. So you could load from a field template. You can save or export that template as well. You can select by field position. So that's going to say if it's the first metadata in field in my database, it'll be matched up with the first one in the load file. That's not going to be typically the most accurate. Field name for our databases, as far as that goes, typically is going to be your best bet. It may or may not be in your database. It just depends on what they're giving you.
Okay.
If you guys have decided on terminology, like if the two parties have agreed that, okay, our custodian field is going to be called custodian, our beg doc field is going to be prod beg doc, those kinds of things. If you've agreed to the field names, then by field name is going to match up pretty nicely. If you didn't agree to them ahead of time, they might not match properly. If that happens, then you just code it yourself. So custodian name, I want that field, right? In my load file, it's called custodian name, but in my database, I don't have anything called custodian name. Now, I have a custodian field in my database. It's just not called custodian name.
Yeah.
So I just need to click in that area, use the drop down, and then find the field that I want to match up with, which in this case is just called custodian.
Okay.
So you just go through here and make sure everything matched up. Text path, I don't have anything called text path, but I do have a location for my text to go to, so I just need to find that. My database is called body. The next step are these paths right here. So these are dummy paths, right? I don't actually have data saved at C drive Eclipse SE production. This is a dummy path. I do have a folder somewhere called prod 001 that then has a native folder that then has this volume folder that then contains this GLX 001 message file. I have everything from this point on. I just don't have it saved at the C drive SE location. So I need to repath it. I can do it two different ways. I can go over to the right-hand side and click the magnifying glass, or I can use these changers down here at the bottom. But right now, we're going to talk about these changers and modifiers here at the bottom, just because it's a little bit easier. Okay. So select mode. We can append or overlay. Append means add. Overlay means that I already have these beg doc values in my database. I just need to overlay information. I need overwrite particular fields or add to particular fields. Because we're adding new documents to our database, we want to append. We don't have any image paths. We just have native file path and text file path. So we're going to skip this area. When we load our OPT, we're going to pay attention to this.
Just back to the select mode right there. Okay, so append is when you're adding it, and there's so you're adding a like this is what I want to put on it. Overlay is like you said, if I just want to replace what the beg doc name is called, or like the
no, so it's going to go off a beg doc key, and maybe I got my first stat file and it had everything but the native file and text path. They just
Uh-huh.
forgot those.
Okay.
So then they give me another .dat file that has this veg.doc and indoc field, and then native file and text path. They didn't give me any of this. I
Okay.
want to overlay. So it's going to say, okay, anytime you hit GLX001 in the native file and path and text file path, I need you to put this information.
Okay.
When you get to
And
the third one, yeah.
then what about the overlay and the pen? Is it going to do both or?
Yeah, so if it doesn't, so if it sees that veg.doc reference, it's going to overlay that information. It's going to replace the fields.
Okay.
If it doesn't see that veg.doc number, it's going to add those fields to your database.
Oh, okay.
It's
So
going to
like,
add
oh,
those veg.doc
okay,
records.
that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. So instances where you would use that would be like they ran a bad production. So maybe they forgot a particular search. So they're giving you, they gave you the first search, but it left out April emails,
Okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So then they give you another load file, but it contains what they already produced plus the April emails. So you'd want
Got
to
it.
overlay and then add those April emails.
Got it.
So it'd replace any other additional metadata and then add those April emails in.
Got it.
All right, so text options. Prompts for missing text files. We don't need to check this. I don't like to check this. The reason being is it will prompt you on missing text files, but if I'm getting this from opposing counsel, they might not have given me text files for files that they redacted.
Okay.
So I might get a lot of kind of false positives here, and I might automatically assume, oh my God, they didn't give me information. They're doing this on purpose. Oh my God, they hate us. I hate them too.
Yeah.
No, it's just they redacted those files.
Yeah.
So you can have them prompt on those missing text files. IOCR anyway and index.
Okay.
I really don't need to. And then when I'm going through my review, I can then see later what's
Okay.
been indexed or whatever. Maybe they skip something. Doesn't really matter. I can fix it, and it's going to be fixed anyway. Extracted text contains file path. Yes, it does, right? Because I put it to my body field. That's an extracted text field, and this is a path. This isn't words that are contained in the document.
Okay.
You can put in all the words that are contained in the document. It's going to be one heck of an ugly DAT file, and you're probably going to have delimiters in there, so it's going to screw up everything. So most people do path. We just did an update to where we can now export that path, where before we couldn't export that path, and you kind of had to load them in a different way. But it's a path, so we need to edit our file path.
Okay.
This works just like kind of our find and replace. So it says, okay, in our load file, put this on do not disturb. We have a team meeting today.
Oh yeah.
It's like, what are we going to talk about? Does anyone know what we're going to talk about? Come on. All right, so hopefully that put did not disturb. Okay, so load file path, this is what our load file says the path is.
Okay.
It recognizes automatically part of that dummy path, right?
Yeah.
It says, okay, this is probably some dummy path. What do you want me to replace this with? Now we can do it a couple different ways. You can go to this file and then browse out. I hate doing this linear path. It just bothers me. I don't like it.
I'm the same way. Yeah, I usually just go File Explorer, find out where I need it, and then copy the path that way. Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise I'm gonna be mad. I'm not gonna fight it. So I want to go out to this prod 001 folder because that's where it's leaving off at, right? So it leaves off at that prod folder. I want to go all the way to that prod folder.
I think this is where I get confused all the time too. Well, even though I hit validate just to make sure like it's the right one and update, it's all about just like you said, the less is more, right? Kind of okay. Because then after you can be like, hey, you're looking for this folder, but it's in this folder. I don't have to go to the actual text folder or find the file that way, right? It's just more like, hey, this is the correct way you're going. You'll find the rest yourself, right?
The rest is gonna be in there. So as long as you get me to the prod folder, it's still gonna it's now gonna contain that text 001 and then that actual text file. So it's gonna get there. Just get me to that main folder where the rest of it is.
Okay.
Then we'll update, validate, file found. If you didn't go all the way to this prod and we updated, then it's going to skip that prod folder, right? Because it's replacing all of this
Mm-hmm.
information and it's not going to find it. So you just need to kind of go out to that main folder where Eclipse SE kind of tells you to go. It's going to say, okay, we're going to replace up to this prod folder, so you need to go out to that prod folder. We'll update this, validate, okay. Then we're going to do the same with the native path options. Same thing. It's going to say, okay, this is the dummy path field. Because we copied and pasted it, just paste it. Because
Mm-hmm.
we only went to the prod folder. Doesn't matter that this one's now natives folder 001 and the other one was text 001. We just went into the prod folder.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to find natives in there. Refresh, validate. We do
So
have
then,
the,
so I. Oh, sorry about that. So the native path, I understand that's just the just it could be like whatever file. It's the original file that you want to put into it, or like whatever it's reading from.
yeah,
What is the text path? What is the text path
the
exactly?
OCR, the text associated with the file.
Okay. What if they don't have? Will it always have a text path then?
No.
Okay.
You might not have a text path because the file is an image and has no text associated with it. You
Okay.
might not have a text file because the image was redacted. They didn't give you a native file because it was redacted, and they also didn't give you text because they redacted the document. So you might not have
Got
a
it.
native file or a text path.
Okay,
There's
yeah,
all different reasons.
that makes sense now. I think I was just thinking that it was just like its own file, but it kind of is, right? It's a
Yeah,
dot text. Okay, oh, I see where it says because it's the same file name. So there's one for the what
native.
say if it's a PDF, and then oh, see it, got it. Sorry, I'm confusing myself. That's my problem. I
No,
overthink
no,
it
no.
because I get confused. But yeah, that's me.
Yeah, no. So the native file is the original file format. And that can be a PDF, it can be a message file, it can be, a text file, just however it was created. If it was scanned in and made to a PDF, it's a PDF. If it was an email, it's going to be a message file or what a box file or something like. I think that's what Apple does. I don't know. I don't know an Apple products. So native file will be message. You might not get the native file. They might not give you natives. They might just give you TIFF images. They might have redacted the document, so they can't give you the native file because they would give you the stuff that they redacted. Text path, same
Mm-hmm.
way. Some people just don't give OCR information. They just don't give it to you. You have to OCR
Okay,
it
so
yourself.
since we're talking about the vocabulary, OCR is like, say if it's an image and then you scan it, right, for text files, right?
Yep.
Or is it okay? Then what's
Optical
TIFF then?
character recognition. TIFF is an image file.
Okay. Okay, so that's when you want to turn like an email into an image.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, got it. Cool. Okay, so I have the opposite. Cool. OCR is what was that again? You said
Optical character recognition.
got it. Cool.
So it makes things searchable. All right, indexing options. If you are ingesting a bunch of DAT files, so if we have this DAT file, then we have another DAT file to ingest, and we have another DAT file ingest, do we want to hold off our indexing? Do we not want to index until we have all of our load files ingested? That can be a positive, it can be a negative. The positive to that is every time you ingest a load file, you're not having to wait for the index to flush and then rebuild. You're only having to do that once. So it could save you, at least an hour, depending on how large your database is. The
Okay.
downside to that is if you are in here and ingesting, and then you get pulled off. These records are going to be in someone's refresh database, but they will just see that, oh, I see some bag doc numbers for GLX001. They must have gotten the production in. I can start running my searches. Well, they're going to get bad search results because none of those GLX documents are searchable. They're not in the index.
Okay.
So they'll be running their searches thinking, oh, yeah, great, you got it all in. Here's all my searches. Here's what I need to. Here, attorney, look at this. I'm going to produce it. and you're in a meeting for an hour. They're doing all this work thinking they're good to go. You come back and you're like, oh yeah, all that work is me. No, I didn't get everything. I didn't index it.
That sucks.
Yeah, it's
So
happened
so
before.
you're saying that it's depending on the situation where you should just index it now, or is it what's the default setting on it right now?
Default setting is index now.
Oh, got it. Cool.
So you'd have to turn that off. So I edit. So merge full text index, it's going to add it as it ingests this. I can stop it. I can make it dynamic, per record. I can change some.
Yeah, that's usually
But
the
it
first
just
thing I
depends.
do whenever like if they're like, oh, my search is not working. Like, let's just repair your index real quick and see if it works. And then most times it fixes it, because
Yeah.
whatever they do.
Yeah. Something maybe just got screwed up. Somebody didn't refresh it, or something happened. So for me, I was one of those people who always got pulled off tasks. Like
Okay.
I'd be ingesting a bunch of things and then get a phone call or get pulled off to another emergency or get pulled into something or whatever the case may be. I might be pulled off tasks all the time. So
Okay.
for me, I need it indexed every time I ingest something, because if I'm gone for an hour, I don't want somebody to be doing some work that, is a waste of time.
Got it.
That was just my preference. We have clients who specifically asked for this option and demanded this option because for them it was taking too long. This was like 3 and 4 hour process because their databases were so huge. So for them, it made sense to do a bunch of these load files maybe at the end of the week, and then at 5 p.m. index their database.
Okay.
So, they'd start their ingesting or importing data at 4 p.m. So that way by 5 p.m. they would push that rebuild index, gather everything, and everyone would be good for Monday morning.
Got it.
Yeah. So it made sense for those really big databases, because the larger your database, the longer it takes to rebuild that index, right?
No, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Is it technically when you rebuild the index, it's lesser time than doing it combined with this, right? Is it technically like faster doing it separate?
I don't know. I haven't
Okay.
done the statistics on it. Diego would
Okay.
probably know.
Okay.
Yeah. So action is the next box over. So we have validate or import. Validate will just make sure you had, your fields kind of mapped correctly, that, you're not putting your text file to a mail from. It's kind of checking that. It's checking whether or not you had that month, day, year setting on there. Because we selected for our case preferences that it's going to validate when we import, we don't need to do that validation process because it's going to automatically do it for us. So we're going to hit submit. In this process, it's validating it, and then it ingests it. So our start document count was 0. We didn't have anything in our database. Our in document count is 30, so it ingested or imported 30 records, and it's complete. It did it in, less than a couple seconds.
Okay.
Step 4 is verify. You're not going to see anything until you select list all records.
Okay.
So we see our records. We see all 30 of them. If we go down here to the arrows, we can see the last 10. Everything has zeros in these parents because we don't have any images associated with these records yet. We didn't ingest that OPT file that has those TIFF images associated. But we can see that extracted text for each file, maybe here. The length is 4,000. We can see some of the metadata fields that came over, and just kind of QC real quick what came over, make sure that it's supposed to be that way.
Quick question on this one too. You know how it goes the GLX 1, then 3, 4, 5. Does that mean one has pages 2?
Yes.
1 and 2. Okay. How do you separate them? Like if they wanted it like each document to have their own page.
We could. So this is a load file, so it was already separated that way for us. We could technically go into to the desktop and then split all the documents that way.
Okay.
Or if we didn't get load files and we got it like an image ingestion, we can make them all page individual.
Oh yeah, I think you're well, yeah, you are right. I think I remember seeing it in images. I'll ask the question later. Then okay. Cool.
Yeah, but with load files, this is how they were given to us. So we
Oh
have
yeah,
to go into desktop and split the document.
okay. So whatever you get from this, like the import data, it's just basically just saying like, this is what it was saved as. This is what you, and then you're loading it on. Got it.
Yep. All right, so let's get that OPT. We're going to go back to import data, select our client, select our case. Again, I suggest give it a job name. I'm not going to give it a job name right here. We're going to browse out to where that OPT file is, so it should be with your load files. That was the DAT file we imported. We're going to update or upload this OPT file. It's only going to have your image key, so that BegDoc number, and an image path.
Okay.
Right? And that's that dummy path. So we're going to need to update it in that. So step 2, we want to select our image path because we want to get that in there. We're going to go down here to select mode. We want to overlay now, right? Because we already have these Bates number or production keys in here. I already have those BegDoc numbers in here. We want to say anytime you see this BegDoc number, this is the image associated with it. So
Got
we
it.
want to overlay. Image options. This OPT file has an image path. So we can create error if image exists already. So if we already created an image for GLX1, do we want to throw an error? Do we want to overwrite it and remove existing annotations? So let's say somebody tiffed this on the fly, right? And they made annotations. Do we want to overwrite it and overlay this TIFF image and remove all their annotations? Do we want to just replace the image but keep the grid assignment where those annotations are?
Okay.
Or do we just want to skip them all together? What do we want to do? I'm just going to create error if an image already exists. We don't have these images. It's not going to throw an error. Edit file path. So just like we did with native file path, just like we did with text, it's going to give us that, recognize that dummy file. I'm just going to paste in my path, refresh, and validate. Again, it's only going to that prod folder. I only need to go to that prod folder, and it's going to find the rest. I can copy image native files to the case folder. It's going to be in that folder structure where your DAT files are, so you don't need to select this. You can, I guess. I don't know an instance where you would. We don't need to worry about text options. We don't need to worry about native file path or indexing because we're just bringing in an image key and an image path. We're going to import, submit. Our start dot count should be the same as end dot count.
Okay.
If it is not, we did not push overlay, we pushed append.
Okay.
So it should be exactly the same. Step 4, list all our records, and now in those parents we see numbers. So that's how many pages this document has.
Would
So that's
would
why
it
I
be
went from
would it be a
46.
safe practice to back up the case before if I was going to import anything like over that? Because then, what if I accidentally thought? Okay.
Yeah, you could definitely do that. I mean, it's always a good idea to back up your database anytime you add something to your database.
Okay. Yeah. Because then instead of having the 30 documents, if I have 60, I'd have to go back, delete those. So hypothetically speaking, say if I did add on top of this, I could just select all this, build the search, delete these images, and just re-import the images and fix it that way, right?
Yep.
Got it.
I'd go to that global replace, do a search for those records, and clear out that field.
Where's the global replace? Is that? Got it.
Global search replace. I'd go here, select my image key range, and then I'd say for a text path, I want you to replace this field, whatever the case may be.
Okay. Got it.
All right. So now we have our images. If we didn't have a text file path in our DAT file, we can go here. So is our text files page-based or document-based? So do we have a text file that contains all the text for the entire document, or is it a text file that contains all the text per page? So we just select which one it is.
Okay.
Is the file name what the image key is, that BegDoc number, or is the first line in the file that BegDoc number? How is it identified? Where am I linking it out to?
Okay.
Then you go out to that prod folder to where that text folder is. and then bring it all in. So
Okay.
if you didn't have a path in there, this is how you get that OCR text into it if they gave it to you. Import production history. This is a very uncommon one. I don't know how common you guys see it. But you need to have a cross-reference file containing the original image key to the produced image key. So it needs to be like a DAT file that gives you the begdoc number and then the produced prod begdoc number. Then you need to have an image load file, an OPT file, that contains that production file with now where those image paths live.
Okay.
So this would only be if that begdoc number in your database matched the begdoc number in their database. Maybe you have co-counsel and they have the same built database as you do. They didn't change, put it in the same order as you. You could do it that way. If you forgot to put over those prod numbers when you did your production, you could do it this way.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember using this one too much. It's
Yeah,
mostly like the.
Yeah, I can see why it would be there, but it's not a commonly used one.
Got it.
Import for IPRO suite. So if you had that old version, you could go to that suite login, grab your suite case, and then bring all your documents in. So it's just kind of like a migration.
Okay.
Export data. We'll talk about that when we talk about productions, and we're going to go to processing. So this is where we ingest our images and ingest our natives. So images would be if the other side produced to you a bunch of PDFs, or you gave the subpoena over to St. Joseph's Hospital and they gave you a PDF. That PDF is going to contain metadata, but a lot of that metadata is going to be false, right? They're going to give you, if you subpoenaed St. Joseph's Hospital, the metadata associated with that PDF is going to be when they ran that export process, right? And it's going to be whoever person at St. Joseph's Hospital ran that PDF is going to be the author. That's not actually the information that reflects what the document has. It may be records from 2 years ago, but it says it was created today because that's when the person at St. Joseph's Hospital ran it.
Okay.
So it's worthless metadata. It's junk. So we're going to go to our case. We can use these C drives and E drives. Again, we always recommend you in CPath. So I'm going to browse out. It's this PC? No. Is it this PC, C drive, file share, sample data? This is why I hate the linear.
Yeah, no, it's the worst.
Training, imports, images, no load files, PDF base. So I'm going to bring in these files. So I've gone out to my file. Is it multi-page images or are they single-page images? So is it a PDF per page in a document, or does the PDF have more than one page?
Got it.
Do I want to bring in TIFFs if they're in this file? Do I want to bring in PDFs, JPEGs, PNGs, GIFs, BMPs? Do I not want to bring in a particular image file? What do I want to do? Do I want to keep images where they currently are? Do I want to OCR those images during import? Do I want to copy images to my case data directory? So we have locations plus OCR. I recommend everyone save their records to where they need to be saved as per their protocol. So if there's an Eclipse SE server, and then there's a case database, and then there's a productions and an ingestion folder, or whatever the case may be, pop it in there before you go ingest it. That way you don't have to copy images to a data directory. You keep the images in the location because that's the structure you need it in. You can copy it to this data directory, but then it can get kind of messy the more you load to it because it's not as organized as if you manually did it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Numbering. Are the file names their begdoc numbers? Because if they are, we can bring them in that way, or we can rewrite them. Error handling. If there's a begdoc number that matches it, do we want to overwrite it? Do we want to log an error? Do we want to stop the processing? If there's an error uploading it, what do we want to do? Metadata field mapping. I told you a lot of those metadata fields will be junk, right?
Okay. Yeah.
only going to bring in the file name because that's probably not going to be junk.
Yeah.
And the file path, where is it located? That's all it's going to bring in. And then custodian, where did these records come from? We're going to say these came from, let's see, we went on a coffee thing. We'll call this Starbucks. That's the owner of the records. That's where we got these records from our subpoena. So,
Quick question also on suffix doc pages. Is that going to say, so if the PDF has like 5 pages, it's going to be like, here's well, GLX 001 and then 0.01 and then
yes.
0.02. And if they want it separate, I uncheck that doc page part, right?
Yes, but
Okay.
then it's not going to match up with the image big doc number potentially, or it will. So it just
Okay, so then that's when I would change it, like make it specify
yeah.
a different number. Okay.
Yeah, so if I did it this way, the beg docs, use the beg doc for the file name, and it was multi-page images, then each page of that beg doc is going to be a new number, so it will match exactly. If we suffix, then it's going to be 0.1, 0.2 of GLX 52 or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
So a lot of people like that unchecked. It just depends.
Okay. And then you
if it
just
has
want to.
Bates numbers, if it doesn't have Bates numbers. So
Got
this
it.
one, did I bring in Bates numbers? Yeah, this one has Bates numbers, so I'd want to deselect this. If it was from a subpoena response from St. Joseph's Hospital, it's not going to have beg doc numbers, so I create my own numbering scheme.
Got it.
So we'll hit start. Custodian Starbucks not found. Do you want to add it? Yes, I do. This shouldn't take too long. It's only like 24 pages, so it shouldn't be too bad. So it's OCRing because I put OCR. You can see down at the bottom. That's what it's doing right now.
Okay.
It's telling me what file it's on. I can technically cancel this out if I wanted to. I can view my log file if it did throw any errors here. Or I can go into the back end and grab that log file. So it's all done. 4 docs were ingested, 24 pages total. Again, I can view that log file, see how long it took me. Ingest natives works pretty similar. It's kind of like a hybrid between import and ingest images. So I'm going to select my case ID number and my case, browse out to my files. Oops, not client data. Training data, and I'm going to go to my natives ingestion folder, and we'll bring in Rachel De Jesus. I'm going to bring in her main folder because we're going to say this is all the documentation we got from her that we asked.
Okay.
We can like expand this out and choose what we want to bring in and what we don't want to bring in if we want it to be really particular. Usually we go out to the folder of, the main folder of everything we want to bring in. So I might have, Rachel De Jesus's folder, and then I might have ingestion for 526, ingestion for 527, ingestion for March 31st. And then I just pop them in that way. Our metadata fields are going to map automatically. So my mail CC is going to go into my mail CC. It's going to pull all this metadata from these native files. Starting beg doc number. So it's going to pick up on the last alphabetical and numerical numbering system. So the last number I ingested for the prefix GLX was 152.
Okay.
GLX 152, that GLX prefix came from the records that were coming to me from defendants. So it doesn't really have any relevance. I don't want to use that. A lot of our clients use rev underscore. I've seen D for defendant, P for plaintiff. Maybe sometimes the plaintiff's name real quick just to identify it. I'm going to do rev underscore, and then I'm going to put some zeros in front of it and a 1.
Okay.
This is my new ingestion. This is from my client. This is the first time I've ingested documents from my client. So it's going to start with 1. If it's not, I'm going to pick up at the last number this rev ended with, kind of thing.
Okay.
File extension filters. So this is kind of like we can use this as our denisting. Which extensions do we want to include? So we're only going to ingest these type of extensions, or we're not going to ingest these other types of extensions. So if you knew there were executable files in here and you don't want to ingest them because they're pointless, put in there a .exe.
Where would you put it in? Say if it's a .exe.
Right here.
Got it. Oh, okay. Extension to exclude. Got it.
We don't want to include exe files, so we're gonna take out those. Maybe we didn't want to bring in TIFFs, or we didn't want to bring in Excel spreadsheets or something like that.
Okay, cool. So you don't have to put the period. You can just put enter extension separate by space. Got it.
Native file options. Like I said, I recommend you save your data you're going to ingest or import already to your folder structure, so that way it doesn't kind of get messy. So you can copy files from your case directory if you didn't do it, or if you already did it, keep original file location. There is this option to extract inline images. It's the worst option ever. Canadians use it a lot because for some reason it appears that a lot of Canadian attorneys or companies embed like Excel spreadsheets into the email, or embed Word documents into the email. And they want those documents outside of just the email. They want to be able to just use that document. US courts, for the most part, do not allow that. That's kind of breaking up the entire data. So it needs to be embedded. If it's embedded, it needs to be embedded. You can produce it outside of it, but you kind of broke apart its family. Also, as we all have in our emails, we all have pretty little signatures with all kinds of images, right? If you extract inline images, it's going to create a document for every image you have on that signature line every time it sees that signature line. Yikes. So you could really grow your database with a bunch of junk. Like I have 4 certified images, icons on mine, plus my photo, plus my signature. Like there's like 10 images associated with it. I would have 10 documents associated with my email on top of whatever attachments were there. And then that's every time I send an email, or every time, I receive an email kind of thing. So it could really grow your database, and you'd be searching through stuff that made no sense. Like you're never going to produce that. It's junk. So I suggest never selecting that. There are some cases with Canadians who prefer that. So just be mindful. Suggest not to do that.
So if you wanted it, you'd click that checkbox if just in case they need. Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. Extracted file options, attachments, zip files. Where do you want them to go? Use case data directory, or do you want to use a specific directory? So if you're keeping original file location, I would suggest use specific database directory and then browse out to where that file location is. If you're copying files to your data directory, just use case data directory. I suggest keeping those extracted files with your original files, right? Because that just makes sense.
Yeah.
In this particular case, I'm just going to keep them separate because I'm not going to grow out this area because I don't want to add junk to my sample data.
Okay.
Email hash values, what it's going to create that SHA-1 hash value on. Custodian, where did I get these records? These are Rachel de Jesus. Why is I don't know if I'm like typing weird or my keyboard's messed up today. I'm going to blame it on the keyboard.
Yeah, there you go.
Deduplication. Do we want to perform deduplication? If yes, do we want to do it at case level or custodian level? So case level, we'll look at all the duplicates in your entire case, no matter the custodian, which might be good because that'll make sure you don't have duplicates for the entire database. Custodian level, maybe you only want to run it against one custodian. Maybe you're getting documents. You got a production from Rachel de Jesus. You got a bunch of these folders. And you had asked for all documentation between January through June of 2020. We're not in June yet, but you asked for all of that. And for some reason, when she gave it to you, she skipped April. So you go back and you say, hey, I don't have any documents for April. You need to give me April. So she goes back, she gives you this file, you look at it, she gave you again from January to June, but this time it includes April. You can't really break it up.
Yeah.
Because that's going to take a lot of time. If you perform deduplication at the custodian level, it's going to only bring in those new documents. So theoretically, the new documents would be only April, right?
Okay, yeah.
So it wouldn't be running the entire database. It would just be running against that custodian, and it would kind of quicken your ingestion. But
Yeah, that
those
makes sense.
April duplicates might be duplicates throughout the rest of your database too. So you just need to be mindful of
Okay.
what you're doing. Make selected custodian primary custodian. So if I have Ariana Ackers in here and Henrietta Becker, do I want to make Rachel De Jesus now the primary custodian? So she's going to be the main witness? Or do I want somebody else? Index options, do I want to do the indexing now or later? Again, same, just like that import. So I have a lot of native files I want to ingest today, and I'm doing multiple sets and then index at the end, or am I indexing every time? And then do we have a password list? Do these records have passwords associated with them? Do they not? Do we know about it? If we don't know about it, we can leave it blank. It will tell us if they're password protected documents, and then we can go up to reprocess.
Mm-hmm.
And then it will let us run those passwords against it. So we're going to hit start. Rachel De Jesus is not found. Do we want to add her? Yes, we do. And it's going to start ingesting those files for us.
With that password load file, so let's say if it's a text file where it says here's a password. So anytime that anything that's password protected, it'll try to run that password on it, right?
Yep.
But in it won't do it natively, right? So all it's saying that's just gonna pull whatever metadata it has from the file, if it's like a PDF or something like that, or okay.
Yep.
Got it.
Yep. It's not gonna rip off that password protection. It's just gonna open it, grab the metadata, and then you'll have to know which password it is if you want to see that native kind of thing.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, because I remember Diego saying something about like our program doesn't change natives. I mean, it just takes like just takes data, but it'll never change any natives.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. All right. So we had 56 duplicates found. It skipped over them. We can look at the CSV file to see what were duplicates, who they duplicated against. If we didn't have that password list, we'd have this reprocess option. We can view log file here. We can see how long it took, what our starting records were, now what we have, what time it ended, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Next option is TIFF. Do we want to create images? We may have images, we may have natives, we're going to have a mixture.
Okay.
What do we want to TIFF? So we'll process the entire case, but we're going to exclude Excel spreadsheets maybe, because those can get kind of ugly. We can include them, we can not include them. It's up to us. And whether or not we want to create color images.
What Excel's like, say if it's like like it's like a table, but like sometimes it'll turn into like 4 pages rather than it just got it.
Yep. We'll hit start, and we'll make images for everything that doesn't have an image.
Cool.
It should be pretty quick because I think a lot of our files have images. Just checking.
So when they said that there's 32-bit and 64-bit, I'm just assuming just the power it uses, right? Because in like now iPro for desktop, do you work on iPro for desktop also?
Yes. Yep. I do all the desktop products.
Okay. So then the iPro for desktop, that's gonna be like it's gonna be faster on the tiffing, right? Because I'm assuming this one's 32-bit, right? I think still.
So I have on mine the 64-bit with streaming.
Okay.
Some of our Canadian clients, for some reason, well, not for some reason, it was cheaper. They didn't buy the streaming. So they don't have deduplication. They don't have password running. And it runs a lot slower because it's only.
Is it still SE? Is it still SE? Is it still SE or is it like
SE.
okay?
Yep, still SE. They're just 32-bit processing instead of kind of a multi-threaded processing. And then iPro for desktop, they removed that option of whether you buy streaming or not. It's streaming.
Okay.
Yeah. So there will be a lot of Canadian clients who this process is going to take forever. Native file ingestion is going to take forever. There will be no deduplication. There won't be any password protection recognition.
And there's no way to tell a difference, right? I mean, other than
you'd have to look into their account.
Okay.
I think there is a way in system management. I'm just not sure how to tell.
Oh, I'll ask Diego, and so we're
Yeah,
done with this. Yeah,
yeah.
'cause
I know there's a way to tell in here. I just don't know how because normally I don't see other people's systems.
yeah, no, it's
Usually
all good.
train off this environment. I sometimes see it, but
Mhm.
kind of rare. All right, so it's processing some documents, and then we'll OCR. OCR process is pretty similar. Do we want to process the entire case? Do we have a safe search?
Mhm.
You know, if we have a bunch of documents in this database, we've OCR'd a lot, we probably want to do it off a safe search or an advanced search. So we're only OCRing these new documents we brought in, right?
Okay.
We're not re-OCRing our entire database. So we're going to have to check our entire database. We just want to kind of cull it down.
Mhm.
And we haven't run this process before, so we're running it now.
Okay.
There have been some there are applications that can make the Excel spreadsheets look nice in an image format, and then we re-import. So you
Okay.
would do like an OPT. You'd create an OPT file, say these are the big doc numbers, and then this is the new file extension for the images that are related to these Excel spreadsheets.
Okay, so normally when we get into production, maybe there's maybe because producing is kind of like so I kind of get like the ingest, so I just needed a more understanding, which you verified right here, just like ingesting natives and all that. Production is the one I'm probably gonna ask a lot of questions on because that's where I kind of get into.
Yeah.
I get a lot of production questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that is a huge thing for everyone. So
Mhm.
you're going to get a lot of ingestion questions, but probably a lot more production.
Mhm.
Less on the review side. Typically, there's enough content out there, or they've done some sort of database research, or they're really familiar with back in the day legal research. There's companies called like Westlaw and LexisNexis. That's where you do your legal research. Now it's like natural language and they have builders, but before everything was Boolean search. So if
Yeah.
you didn't know Boolean search connectors, you weren't searching anything. Like you had to know it. So a lot of the older attorneys, they know Boolean search. So that's kind of what they grew up with. So they can really do their searches and review. They don't need a lot of help.
Okay.
Younger paralegals, younger attorneys, we're so more familiar with like doing Google searches and natural language searches and using these advanced
Hmm.
searches to like build things that it comes a lot easier to us on that side. So luckily, the review portion of that doesn't get a lot of questions because it really does fit a lot of generations. All right, so 304 documents were converted to TIFF. We're good there.
Okay.
OCR, like I said, again, same process entire case, do it off a safe search. You can choose an OCR language. We can only choose one at a time. So we either choose English or we choose French or Spanish, whatever the case may be. We can include the image key in the OCR text. So if we're doing a full search text, we can search for that OCR or that prod beg no number. Re-OCR pages that have been rotated since the last time we did OCR. Re-OCR all documents and pages.
That's gonna take a long time, right? That's
That's
the one.
going to take a long time. It's also going to potentially get rid of some really good OCR.
Okay.
So like a Word document has extracted text, right? Because it's a freaking Word document.
Yeah.
That's what it is. So that extracted text file is going to be the most pristine version that's ever existed.
Got it.
If we overwrite it with OCR from the image, it's not going to be so pristine. I mean, it's going to be good,
Hmm.
but it's not going to be as pristine as the actual
Okay.
Word document itself. So I don't suggest it. Um, Diego might know some reasons why you might want to do that. But if you have natives, don't do it. Is my
Okay.
native.
And then that image rotation right there, when it says auto image rotate, is it like whatever, like it's gonna be readable, or is it there's no way to choose if you
What the
want it all
system,
vertical?
yeah,
Okay.
what the system thinks that it should be rotated at, or if you've already been into your review system, you've rotated documents and now you want to re-OCR them because they didn't come in good because they were not rotated correctly for the OCR,
Hmm.
use viewer rotation. So that way
Okay.
it doesn't de-rotate your documents. Do not replace existing extracted text. This is good option, but it also can get you in trouble. So
Okay.
sometimes you will get text files that only contain the prod beg doc number, or you'll have documents that come in with extracted text that only contain that prod beg doc number. It won't contain any other text that actually relates to the document. It's just a number. Or it says, CNATA file, or text not included, image
Okay.
redacted, something like that. Technically, that's something in the extract text, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to see that as extracted text and skip that document. But that text really has nothing to do with the document itself. You want to overwrite it. So you will have to
Okay.
know, do not replace existing extracted text. If you choose that, you'll have to know whether or not your documents contain words like that in the extracted text file. Maybe do some advanced searching.
Okay, so mostly people leave it unchecked then? Is that
Yeah,
what okay, got
yeah.
it.
It just depends. I mean, you have to know your data. What are
Yeah,
you
exactly.
working with?
Yeah, everything's case by case, literally, right?
Yeah, literally. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, Diego and I had a client, a couple, well, they're still a client, they're being trained. But
Mhm.
Diego and I were talking because they were having some issues, but they had a lot of images they were ingesting, a lot of PowerPoints with just an image in it. There's no
Okay.
text. So they're doing this OCR based on this saved search they had, and it was throwing a lot of errors because it was saying that it couldn't OCR this document. Well, they're thinking, oh my God, you have this terrible system. When we go
Yeah.
into the log, it's no, these documents don't have any text, so that's why they couldn't do it.
Mm. Yeah,
So
I mean, well, we're being recorded, but mostly, yeah, is before before they want to blame themselves, they'll blame the program first. But I realize like, hey, let's just check the data just to make sure.
yeah, yeah, but I mean that's a common thing. They're like, hey, my OCR keeps throwing errors. Then I say, can you send me the log file or look at the
Mhm.
log file? Is it just image contains no text? Well, then
Got it.
that's
So
not really an error.
that's
Show me
it's
what
kind
it
of a
is.
safe bet. Safe bet just to look at the native and just kind of just take a look at it.
Yeah, or it'll give you a log file at the end that they can go to, and then it'll tell you. It'll say, okay,
Have
this
you
is the image we tried to do the OCR on. This is why we couldn't do it.
have you seen people ingest like PowerPoints also?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a thing also. Okay.
Yep, PowerPoints get ingested all the time.
Okay.
Like this particular client, their PowerPoint was just an image. Like literally, the PowerPoint would be one slide and it would be an image. That's it.
Oh, really? That's it. Okay.
So they were coming up with a bunch of errors that these PowerPoints weren't being ingested. So then we go look at these
Okay.
PowerPoints, we're like, oh, it's an image. There's no text.
So
Because
then
normally you'd be like, oh, I want that.
you want to OCR it then, right? Or sorry, uh, TIFF it, right? Well,
Yeah,
oh,
you'd have
yeah,
it
TIFF it,
TIFFed.
right? Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
you could have it TIFFed. But yeah, there's nothing to OCR on it, so it's going to throw an error. And
Yeah,
say, hey,
okay.
this
Because
document
it's
didn't
create
get
an image.
OCR'd. Yep, because it
Got it.
didn't have any text associated with it. It's
Yeah.
just an image. So that could cause problems. Binary file types had binary text in it that doesn't get OCR'd sometimes.
Okay.
I don't know exactly what that is, to be quite honest. I just know I see it all the time.
Okay, right on. So it's just a bunch of numbers and letters and together.
Yeah. So it didn't recognize it. What are some other commonalities that don't get OCR'd? That's usually it. That's usually the common thing is I get
Okay.
clients coming in and saying, hey, I got a bunch of these errors. What are these errors? And I'm like, oh, it's because this happened or this file probably doesn't have any text. Can you go look at that beg.key?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we need to look at your data a little bit closer so that way we can create an advanced search or a saved search
Mm-hmm.
that will prevent these errors in the future, prevent you from seeing these errors, wasting your time trying to OCR a document that's never going to be OCR'd, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And not all OCR is going to be perfect either. I mean, we've all seen really crummy scans or really crummy documents,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just not going to be OCR'd. They're just going to be difficult. So you create coding fields, you create summary fields, you create doc tags, to kind of get around that. I'm actually doing a CLE in a couple weeks about working with hard copy clients in ESI databases.
Oh.
So my last job, it was lit support and paralegal, and one of our main clients is a correctional facility.
Okay.
They're a private correctional facility company. So they have, over 120 facilities in the United States. And it's not like their correctional officers walk around with iPads. Not everything is electronic,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Exactly.
There's a file clipboard next to their cell, and they write which time they walked by the room. Or,
Oh.
the nurse writes down whether or not they took their medication, what time they took their medication, did they refuse lunch. Everything's handwritten. If an inmate needs to see a doctor, they write down on a slip. They're not given an iPad. They write down on a slip, I
Yeah.
need to see the doctor. I need my insulin checked. I need, some Tylenol.
So then you'd have to enter it manually, or how, like
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So
So the OCR wouldn't pick it up
wouldn't
sometimes, or
pick
is
it
that?
up. Yeah, it wouldn't pick it
Yeah.
up. It would pick up sometimes like the text of the form itself,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't pick up the handwriting.
Yeah. It's you can only do so much with auto generation, right? Auto
Yeah.
generating something. Yeah. Got it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I mean, then you just have to be creative about your fields. Which date ranges does it capture? What's the general synopsis of this document? Are there keywords in here that you'll want to eventually search?
Okay.
That kind of stuff. What do you think it says? Sometimes that's the case. They'll write a letter of all their problems, and you're like, I think this is what they're saying.
Yeah.
His handwriting's bad. I have
Yeah.
terrible handwriting.
Yeah.
So,
I'm like that's me. I'm just like kind of like chicken scratch a little bit. So it's like it's like I write my names different every single time. Like I'm one of those guys with a different signature every single time. I'm like
yeah. So, I mean, there would be times where it's like, I don't know what he's trying to say.
yeah.
Really, like, there's some words, this, that, and those, but I have no idea what these other letters are.
I do appreciate you taking time and training me a bit because sometimes when I think like I said I just overthink it and think of big words and like sometimes I'll be deer in the headlights and I hate when I'm like that on like technical like calls when I'm here to be helping them, but this has been good.
Good. All right. So we're getting our OC processed. Do you have any other questions, workflow questions that typically throws off a lot of tech support people? Not that you guys aren't smart or anything, but
Yeah.
it's like they're doing this. I have no idea why they're doing this.
No, it's usually like when they throw us in like I said, it's my production part where like I kind of so the validating volume paths, that one I just kind of get confused with, but then now I just kind of like you said, just don't put over information. Just kind of like where like, oh, this is where the file should be located. You'll find the rest. That's where I kind of had a problem with, but that one I got better. It's a lot of production, and then just the OCR and TIFF. Like I always confuse the two because I know those are terms, but I just keep forgetting which one's which. But then now if even right here it says OCR, optical character recognition, I'll remember that that's like image to text.
Yeah. Yep. All right. I'm gonna cancel this.
Yeah,
It's
no
not gonna
worries.
totally mess up my searching. I have
Mhm.
text. We're good. Okay. Batches. We'll talk about batches real quick. Not a lot of clients do it. Some do. It basically kind of breaks up a database and records into manageable chunks. So if you have a really big database and you have several paralegals reviewing documents, it might be nice to
Okay.
break them up in batches and say, okay, Betty, you're getting the first 500. Jim, you're getting the next 500. And that way they don't like topple over each other, right? Because Betty could have it sorted one way, Jim could have it sorted another way, and they're looking at the same document, or they're totally off, or they have to remember where they left off, or they resorted it another way so then they don't know, and documents are skipped or documents are duplicated, and it just becomes a mess. So you can create review passes to prevent them from toppling over each other. You can use those coding forms so that way they can only code a certain field. They can only code or tag a certain type of document on this review pass. You can break it up in chunks. So first review pass usually is for attorney-client privilege or relevancy. and break it up into chunks that way. So first review pass is going to be whether it's relevant or not. And literally all that coder is going to do is look at their chunk of documents, and is this document related to the Trinity Food Service, or is it related to Trinity High School? If it's related to food service, it's relevant. If it's related to the high school, it's not relevant. And they literally just look for that particular information. They don't care about whether it's attorney-client privilege. They don't care about redactions, nothing. They just care about whether or not it's related to Trinity High School or Trinity Food Service. So it can kind of break down the process and make things go smoother, and streamline the process in a sense where, okay, that big chunk has been weeded out. So now we're only looking at the smaller subsection as to whether it's attorney-client privilege or not. Those other 500 records may have attorney-client privilege in them, but it's irrelevant. It's not relevant to the case. So I don't have to look at those anymore. I only have to look at the smaller subset. I also have paralegals who like to break up their entire database into batches, because maybe this case isn't like super urgency where like deadlines are coming up, but there's a lot of documents and their just goal is to get through 150 documents a day. That is their goal. That is what they are going to do. 150 documents every single day. They'll eventually get through the database, right? So they'll break up their entire, it will only be them, and every day they sign into a new batch, finish up 150 documents, and are done for the day with that case. It just kind of keeps them on track. There are people who like to check things off their task list, that kind of stuff. So I've seen that happen too. So we'll create one. We'll do review pass 1. We can rename it here. We can upload like a PDF or a text file with instructions. You know, are they doing that Trinity High School versus Trinity Food Service? Are they doing an attorney-client privilege? What are they doing? If we created a coding form for the first review pass, we can do that. We can use Attorney Jim's coding form. What do we want to do? Automatically set documents to reviewed if coding rules are met. So that forces them to use those rules in that coding form. Otherwise, they can't go to the next document. Groups and users, who are going to be able to see these review passes and these batches. What do we want to make the batches off of? Are we going to do it over the entire case? Are we going to only do an image key range? So maybe we did entire case first. Now we've broken it down and it's only going to be this range, or only documents tagged something like relevant. We could do that. We could build a search. So it's only going to bring in that smaller group, and then we're going to do review pass 2. We'll do entire case because then we don't have anything tagged. We can batch it by category, so we can break it out. Maybe a custodian field selected as a category field. So the first 100 documents, first 150, whatever the case may be, are all going to be Ariana Ackers. So if I'm the first reviewer for the first batch, I'm looking at all documents from Ariana Ackers. I'm not looking at documents from Betty. I'm not looking at documents from Bob. It's all one custodian. So I might be more consistent on my coding because I'm only looking at one person and I'm not looking at 7 different people. Batch size, how many documents are broken out into batches. So it could be up to, or as low as 10, up to 1,000. So typically 150 to 200 in the real world is really where people are. We don't have a lot in our database, so I'm just going to put 10. Batch priority, this is just default. Is it a low priority, medium priority, high, critical? You got to get through this. This is batch. You can go in and assign particular batches, particular levels. Maybe if you need to get to the first 10 batches in the first week, they're critical. Then you're going to have the next 4 batches the following week, or whatever the case may be. You can do it that way. I'm going to assign them all low right now, and then we can reassign them later. Include family documents into the batches. So this is kind of nice. So if we're doing batches and that 10 document break ends with an email and then the attachments go into the next batch, do we want to keep those attachments with the email and just make that batch a little bit bigger?
Yeah.
Or maybe not go on to the next document because, you know, it's going to break up weird. So we just create a new batch. So your batches might not be all at 10. They might be 14. They might be 9 if we choose this include family documents kind of thing. And then we'll create the batches. Oops, I selected that category field on accident. So let's select, create these batches. All right, so 37 batches were created total because there were 396 documents in my database.
Okay.
We'll go to manage batches. Batch ID just 1 through 37 because there were 37 of them. Batch size, like I said, they might be a little different depending on how many attachments. We're keeping those families together, so they might be a little bit off. You know, priority here we can change to critical. Maybe the first few are critical, and these are high. You know, kind of thing.
Okay, so this is like just saying like, so this is just saying like if we had a firm, we'd be like, we need to get through batch 1 through 10 ASAP, and then like 11 through 15 can kind of be low. Is that
Yeah.
what it is? Okay.
Yeah, just letting people like, hey, we need to get through these batches first.
A little bit more customization for them. Okay, that makes sense. Got it.
Assign to, so we can assign it to users. I didn't assign any groups or users to this batch, so I can't assign them. You can see when they were last accessed, when did that user last go into it, how many documents they've reviewed so far, how many are remaining, do they have any documents on hold, did they say they're not coding this document until they look at more, which might be a thing. They might be looking at an email and they're like, I don't know, let me skip it, let me put it on hold for right now, let me look at some more documents, I'll come back to it and see if I still feel that same way, if I know which way it goes. Whether it's assigned or not, will automatically update. And then we can actually delete batches if we wanted to.
Okay.
We can split batches. So if I'm working on a batch that's 300 pages or 300 documents and I got slammed, I just can't get to it. I got to the first 100 and I can't devote any more time to it. Sorry, I was trying to help you. I just can't. You can split that batch and assign it to someone else, or just have reassign it to someone.
Yep. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, so you can alter it that way. Reporting, so affidavit, responsive report. This is probably the most robust report. Why isn't it active? Come on, that's weird. Huh? Maybe because I don't have anything tagged. Anyways, so you'd select your client ID case. What do you want to run the report on? What records? Which fields do you want to include in the records? Which order do you want it in? Do you want to keep your family together? So the attachments with the emails. Sort key index. What do you want to be that sort key index? Do you want it to be an advanced sort? How to set it up and then start. Case data summary. So what are your native file sizes, image file sizes? This is really more for, monitoring your server resources. What cases are taking up a lot of space? Can I archive some? If I archived this case, how much would it free up? If I moved this case somewhere, what's my footprint? Maybe,
when you archive it, is it just like condensing the program, and then when you want to use it, you have to unarchive it? Is that what it is?
It just kind of like puts it in the background, so that way you don't have that selection anymore. I don't know that it kind of lowers or decreases the value, but I mean, you could archive it and then move it somewhere and then put it back on the system. If you're thinking about getting a new server or projecting next year's costs, you can come in here and look, what is really my footprint? I'm going to get more cases like this Don Francisco case that's a multi-state litigation. Its footprint is this. I know I'm going to get 5 more cases next year. Do I need to get a 40 terabyte server instead of a 20 terabyte server?
Okay.
Something like that. Case review. Where are people in their review paths? Inactive cases. What do I have inactive? Privilege report. So that's that big one. Which tags are going to be captured? Which fields you're going to produce? Are you going to include page tags or just document tags? Are you going to summarize by detail of the document or include page level detail? Usually just documents, fine. And then you'd run your report. There's no items to report because I don't have anything tagged. But then it would tell you what documents were tagged with these tags and then give you those metadata fields. So you can give it to the other side. Production deliverables, what's been produced. a summary of that production, a summary of what's been redacted. Same thing. So detailed, more detailed. This is just a summary. Reviewer detail report. So what do they have on hold? What's their idle time? How many documents are they getting done per hour? Shortcut keys. So if you've assigned shortcut keys in this case, what are those shortcut keys? Maybe you want to export this to a CSV file, give it to all your reviewers so that way everyone knows what the shortcut keys are in this case.
Okay.
We will end there for today.
Mhm.
We'll go into review. I think we're skipping Wednesday and going to Thursday.
No,
Or did we skip Thursday and we're doing Wednesday?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Couldn't remember. Okay. So tomorrow we will do review.
Okay.
We might get into production, probably. It's another
Okay.
3-hour session. We'll probably get into productions.
I think tomorrow is I think 1 to 3, so it's 2 hours, and then
Okay.
I think our Friday is
Three?
just 1 hour.
Oh,
No,
okay, cool.
I think we only have one. Yeah.
Oh, she did you a shortened one because normally these advanced ones are 3 days, 3 hours each. So you lucked
That's what I
out.
was wondering. That's what I was wondering because when I looked at it, I was like, huh. But I guess technically, since I've kind of been in it already, I just need a refresher on it. So I guess that's
Yeah.
maybe that's what it could be.
Yeah,
So
you have a different starting point than brand new. All
yeah. Okay. Cool.
right, cool.
Awesome.
All righty. Well, have a great day and we'll talk tomorrow.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. See you
Okay.
tomorrow.